What interesting, unusual, absurd, or shocking thing did you learn today? Today I learned that after Breaking Bad became popular, some real-life chemistry enthusiasts started coloring their product blue to mimic the show. News reports often show footage from police raids, and there's almost always at least one bag of blue crystals among the confiscated stuff. Of course, it never looks like the beautiful, clear blue Heisenberg made on screen. Instead, it's more like cloudy road salt. But still, it's wild how fiction influenced reality. Today, I learned about Ken Allen, an orangutan from the San Diego Zoo who became famous for his multiple successful escapes. Whenever he broke out, he would just stroll around the zoo, calmly watching the other animals. He never showed aggression toward visitors, but he did throw rocks at another orangutan named Otis, whom he apparently despised. Like, forget you, Otis, I could set you free. But nope, not sure what's cooler, the fact that the orangutan was named Ken, or that he actually had a last name. Today I learned that Janja Maria invested $6 million to save a movie after some random agent told her it was a good idea. Turns out that was the best money she ever spent. The movie? John Wick. She later admitted, that guy wasn't even my agent, he just called me and said, "You've got money, you should invest in this project." I didn't even understand what gap financing was, but over time I realized I love investing in people. You could tell me you're opening a chicken farm. If you're truly passionate, research the market, and know what you're doing, I'd believe in you. She trusted directors Chad Stahelski and David Leitch because they had already put in their 10,000 hours as stunt coordinators and second unit directors. They'd seen all the bad movies and knew how to make a good one. They were obsessed with their craft, and she just knew they'd create something powerful. Today I learned that Marie Curie had an affair with a married physicist. Their letters leaked to the press and caused a scandal. The Nobel Committee pressured her not to attend the ceremony for her second prize, but Einstein told her to ignore the haters and just go. He literally wrote, "If they keep bothering you, stop reading their nonsense. Leave that trash to the snakes it was written for." Einstein knew how to pick his words. Of course, this is the same Einstein who once gave his first wife a list of rules like, "You must stop talking to me if I request it. You must leave my bedroom or office immediately if I ask, without protest." They later divorced, and he married his cousin. Today I learned about a student who wore the same jeans 330 times over 15 months without washing them. Then he washed them and wore them for 13 more days. A textile scientist tested the jeans before and after. The bacterial difference? Almost nothing. Moral of the story? Underwear, socks, and t-shirts daily. Sweaters when needed. Jeans when society starts complaining. Today I learned about a British girl, Olivia Farnsworth, who suffers from a rare deletion on chromosome 6. She has no sense of hunger, pain, or fear. She's the only known person in the world with all three symptoms. When she was 7, she was hit by a car and dragged the length of about 10 vehicles. She stood up afterward and simply asked her mom, "What happened?" She only had minor scrapes on her toe and thigh, plus a tire mark on her chest. Doctors think she avoided major injury because she didn't tense up at impact. The condition is dangerous because she also doesn't feel when she needs to use the bathroom. People like her often need alarms to remind them to go, or it can lead to bladder problems. Today I learned that so many women from China have been going to South Korea for plastic surgery that the Chinese government now requires medical certificates when they return because their faces don't match their passport photos anymore. I lived in China for 15 years and I've seen loads of 18 to 22-year-olds already doing Botox and multiple surgeries. Honestly, spooky stuff. Plot twist: your new face now needs its own passport. I once saw a British guy trying to fly home from Turkey with a brand new hairline and a reshaped jaw. Airline staff told him to go to the embassy for an emergency passport because his current one had a bald guy with no chin. Edited for those asking, the hair looks super fake, like someone glued a 20-year-old's scalp onto a 45-year-old's head. Probably one of those stick-on hair systems, not a real transplant. Today I learned that in 2001, a 13-year-old Boy Scout got lost in Yellowstone National Park. He was out of contact for over 18 hours but used his belt buckle to reflect sunlight and signal planes. His signal was spotted by Harrison Rison, a local who had a helicopter and had done rescues before. Apparently he's well known in the area for helping with search and rescue, not just in Yellowstone but the wider region. This was back in 2001. These days, Yellowstone has its own rescue helicopter, and nearby Teton County even raised $7 million for year-round rescue flights. Today I learned that in 2009, a man tried to assassinate Saudi Prince Mohammed bin Nayef by hiding a bomb in his backpack. This innovative technique didn't work out because his own body absorbed most of the blast. The prince only got minor injuries. Just imagine, you're about to shake someone's hand and the guy suddenly goes kaboom. Honestly, to go out via explosive butt device and still not succeed at your main goal, that's just tragic clown energy. Today I learned that Einstein promised his first wife the full prize money from his future Nobel Prize if she agreed to divorce him. 3 years later, he actually won and gave her the money. Imagine having the confidence to start a sentence with, "When I win the Nobel Prize," and then actually pulling it off. Einstein? Brilliant scientist, but probably a nightmare to live with. Today I learned about a woman who put $40 into a lottery machine to buy several cheap tickets. But some rude dude bumped into her and she accidentally picked a $30 ticket instead. She was annoyed until she scratched it and realized she just won $10 million. Plot twist, the person who bumped her was actually herself from the future. She had already built a time machine after investing her winnings wisely and came back just to give herself a little nudge. When I was 12, I went through something kind of similar, but it only lasted about 6 months. My dad left my stepmom and basically gave her everything. We moved in with my aunt, his older sister. Dad then went to another state for work where he reconnected with some old buddies he used to do, let's just say, questionable party powder. Meanwhile, my aunt was struggling with schizophrenia. At one point, she became convinced that my 14-year-old sister was plotting to kill her. I still clearly remember her showing me that the water heater was turned off and saying my sister was trying to make her freeze to Minecraft hardcore mode levels in the shower. Honestly, my sister probably didn't even know what a water heater was at that time. One day I came home from school and found her bedroom empty, and the shared phone we all used was gone with her. My 14 and 16-year-old sisters ended up living with their boyfriends' families. Those families lived in trailer parks and didn't really care if the girls stayed there for months at a time. I stayed in the house for about 3 weeks after the electricity was cut off. After that, until the end of the school year, I either slept on my school's roof or in parks, just so I could still show up to class in the morning. I had no phone, no alarm clock, nothing. We had one shared EBT cart with food stamps. Sometimes I would sneak into a local church's food giveaway, grab a can of beans, eat them cold, and maybe snag a handful of gummy bears if I was lucky. When my dad finally came back, we just moved in with my ex-stepmom like nothing had ever happened. Nobody asked me how I'd managed during that time. They were just relieved we were all okay. Back then, I rode my little razor bike more than 25 miles a day. Now I'm 28, just trying to keep moving forward and do what I can. Today I learned that Anthony Bourdain, one of the most influential chefs of our time, once said that Ratatouille is simply the best movie about food ever made. He loved the small details, like the burns on chef's arms, which reflected real life in a restaurant kitchen. According to him, the filmmakers truly understood the craft of cinema and did everything right. He even got a thank you in the credits for the advice he gave during the early stages of production. Pixar has always been obsessed with authenticity and tiny details. I remember an archer once saying that Brave had the most accurate depiction of archery on screen. The Cars trilogy is also packed with Easter eggs for mechanics and racing fans. Usually studios bring in experts from the very start to get things right. Disney does the same. It became especially noticeable with Moana. They've been putting a lot of work into respectfully portraying different cultures. That's why Frozen, Moana, Coco, and Kanto, and other films feel authentic and respectful. Today I learned that a sunfish in a Japanese aquarium got so lonely when the place closed for renovations and visitors stopped coming that it refused to eat. The staff managed to bring it back to life only after taping photos of people's faces next to the tank. Wikipedia says that sunfish used to be considered so passive that scientists thought they were basically megaplankton. Imagine being so lazy people confuse you with floating algae. Honestly, it shows how much we underestimate animals' emotions and intelligence until we get close to them. Same way a lot of people used to dismiss cats until they owned one. Today I learned that Hayden Christensen, while filming Star Wars, sometimes made his own lightsaber sound effects with his mouth. George Lucas had to stop him and say, "Hayden, it looks great, but I can see your mouth moving. Don't worry, we'll add the sound later." Apparently this is a pretty common issue. Liam Neeson and Ewan McGregor also did it during The Phantom Menace. Even Laura Dern, firing a blaster in The Last Jedi, went pew pew out loud. Today I learned that in 2012, an 11-year-old boy disappeared while shopping with his mom, then somehow made it all the way to the airport. He passed through 5 levels of security without a passport or a boarding pass, just by tagging along with a random family, and managed to board a flight from Manchester to Rome. His absence was only noticed after takeoff. Imagine that phone call to his mom. "We found your son. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. Where can I pick him up?" Well, he's currently finishing his pasta in front of the Trevi fountain. Today I learned the gorillas fart almost constantly, thanks to their fiber-heavy diet. In the past few days I also learned fish pee all the time. Birds don't fart. Gorillas are basically gas machines. 3-toed sloths poop only once a week, losing up to a third of their body weight at once. Their bellies visibly shrink. They always go in the same spot, and about half of all recorded sloth deaths happen while they're climbing down to do it. Wombats poop cubes. They use those little poop cubes to mark territory, and the shape keeps them from rolling away. When I was 12, I flew alone to visit my grandparents for the summer. The last flight was overbooked, and a kind flight attendant asked for volunteers to give up their seats in exchange for a free hotel room. I raised my hand, and they actually let me do it. Today I learned about Andrew Carnegie, the first billionaire who gave away 90% of his fortune to fund over 3,000 libraries worldwide because he himself had benefited from a free library when he was young. On one hand, he's remembered as a huge philanthropist who gave his wealth to society. On the other, he made his money in steel while underpaying workers, forcing long dangerous shifts, opposing unions, and even using violence to crush strikes. Carnegie, hero of libraries, villain of labor rights. Today I learned that Danny Trejo has a clause in his contracts that his villain characters must always die by the end of the movie. He says it's important for kids to understand that crime doesn't pay. He also shared his opinion about actors doing their own stunts. I know big stars hate when I say this, but I'm not risking the jobs of 200 people just to flex on Jimmy Fallon's show. That's literally what it comes down to. One big name actor twisted their ankle recently during a stunt and suddenly like 80 or maybe 180 people were out of work. That's why we have stunt performers. They're the pros, and sure, if one of them gets hurt, it's sad, but you can just slap a mustache on another guy and keep filming. If I get hurt, the whole production shuts down and everyone's stuck. So yeah, I'm not doing that. Danny Trejo is a legend. Today I learned about a 9-year-old boy who survived for almost 2 years alone after his mother abandoned him to move in with her partner just a few miles away. She visited only occasionally. He survived mostly on cakes and canned food, had no hot water or heating, but still went to school every day and was a good student. He never invited friends over, probably to keep his secret. To his neighbor's annoyance, he sometimes released his energy by running around or jumping on the bed, and the noise echoed through the thin apartment walls. One neighbor, Beatrice, eventually discovered the truth when she saw him outside and said, "Doesn't your mom tell you to stop jumping? The whole building is shaking." He answered, "No, I live alone." "How's that possible at your age?" Just like that. Eventually, authorities placed him in foster care. His mother technically had visitation rights, but only came twice in the following year. Later, the boy himself said he didn't want anything to do with her anymore. Teachers described him as unusually mature and resilient. At court, the mother said, "I'm not the kind of mom who's obsessed with her child, but he's still my son." Judge Anselin Noel found her guilty. "The evidence is undeniable. You abandoned your son." She was sentenced to 18 months, with 12 months suspended, and the remaining 6 under house arrest. Today, I learned that in 2016, a woman was found dead in an elevator after being trapped there for a month. Repair workers knocked on the door, heard nothing, cut the power, and told residents to use another elevator. When they came back a month later, they found her body. She was 43, lived alone, and authorities said she likely starved to death. The walls had scratch marks. It was ruled accidental death by negligence, and 2 workers were charged with manslaughter. Once, I myself got stuck in an elevator that was about to be shut down. Buttons stopped responding, I called the emergency line, and they said someone was on the way. 40 minutes later, nobody. Called again, and they said security had come and called out, but nobody answered. I was like, "Bro, I'm literally in here. I didn't hear a thing." Eventually, an engineer showed up and freed me. Today I learned that Neptune was discovered in 1846, not by chance, but because astronomers noticed Uranus was wobbling off its orbit. Mathematicians used Newton's laws to calculate where the hidden planet had to be. When they pointed the telescope, boom, Neptune was exactly there. This success inspired astronomers to look at Mercury, whose orbit also looked weird. For decades, they searched for a hypothetical planet, Vulcan, thought to orbit close to the sun. But in the end, Einstein's theory of relativity explained Mercury's orbit, eliminating the need for an extra planet. Fun fact, amateur astronomers spent decades searching for Vulcan. One German guy checked the sun every single clear day from 1826 to 1843, and a French doctor even installed a telescope outside his office to look for it daily. Dedication level maxed out. Today I learned that Hans Zimmer was struggling to sync the music for the sword fight between Jack Sparrow and Will Turner in Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl. At one point, a coffee-fetching assistant asked if he could give it a try. That assistant? Ramin Djawadi, future composer of Game of Thrones, Iron Man, and Pacific Rim. Basically, hold my coffee, I got this. It's kind of wild how many coffee runners end up becoming directors, producers, or stars themselves. At least that's how it worked back when old-school media still had funding. Today I learned about a guy who in 2022 won a free drink during an air guitar contest on a cruise ship. That was the last thing he remembered before waking up in the Gulf of Mexico, no ship in sight. He had been in the water for 18 hours, stung twice by jellyfish before finally being rescued. He said he must have had a few drinks before falling overboard, but didn't remember how it happened. At one point, he saw a tanker and used his last bit of strength to swim toward it. The ship alerted the Coast Guard. Richard Hoofel from their aviation unit in New Orleans said the guy had about 30 to 60 seconds left before he wouldn't have made it. Today I learned that 2 guys tried to sue Universal Studios for $5 million after paying $3.99 to rent the movie yesterday, only to discover that Ana de Armas, who was in the trailer, didn't actually appear in the film. Turns out she was in some deleted scenes that a marketing genius decided would look great in the trailer. Thanks a bunch for watching. Drop a comment below about what you learned today, and don't forget to check out our other episodes. See you next time.